For many of you, you've been learning remotely for a week, 2, maybe even 3 weeks. How's it going? So here's 5 tips to help you kickstart your momentum or keep it going. Stay tuned. So my name is Lorianne, and if you are interested in more home learning tips, classroom management strategies, practices, routines, procedures, anything that has to do with teaching and learning, then please hit that subscribe button and bell so you don't miss any future videos that are posted weekly right here. So for 10 years, I worked as an online and home support teacher. Even though I had never done that before, when I was given families to work with, despite my experience, I really was winging it. Basically, if they had a problem, I just said, just phone me, just phone me. Little did they realize I was phoning someone else. But phoning sometimes isn't going to be the best solution. So let's look at 5 areas that can help you feel less frantic or frustrated when troubles arise, because they will. Area number 1, communication. This is the big one. So now is the time to solidify exactly how communication is supposed to be done. Because the thing is, it's not communication unless it works for everybody. If you have an older child, how are they to communicate to the teacher? And likewise, how is the teacher to communicate to you? Is there supposed to be daily communication, weekly communication? And even more so in the younger grades, how are you to communicate with the teacher? And when you do communicate, what is the response time from the other person? So for example, when you send an email to the teacher, what is the response time from that teacher? Is it 24 hours? 48 hours? And the reason why I ask is that if you are frustrated over something that's happening or even frantic, and you send an email, but in the teacher's mind, they're thinking, hey, I don't have to respond to this for 2 days. Is that going to make you feel more frustrated or more frantic? It would me. So it's really important that the guidelines are really clear to everybody. Now, I'm going to say something that some people won't agree with, and that's perfectly fine. This is just my opinion on all of this. But I would stay away from chatting apps such as WhatsApp. It has its place, but in teaching and communicating with parents and children, I don't think it's a good app to use. Much like email, you can't read tone. And so if a parent is texting me, I have no idea whether they're frantic or whether they're upset. And texting seems to have this demand that you need to respond, right away. I don't know the situation that's happening in your home. You don't know the situation that's happening in my home, right? I would just say if your teacher wants you to use that app, I would say let's just stick to email. The same thing goes with assignments. How often are the students or your children required to submit assignments? Is it every day? Is it every week? At some districts, they're really lax on assignments right now because it's still the beginning of this whole process, and they want to kind of ease everyone into it, which is a great idea. When assignments start happening, because they will, particularly if they're in the older grades, what is the response time for feedback from the teacher? When I worked at an online school, and if you've watched some of my other videos, I've talked about this. When I taught high school, we had a rule at our school that if a student submitted an assignment, we were required to have it marked with feedback and sent back within 7 days. Area number 2 is boundaries. This is almost as important as communication. Please make sure you know your teacher's office. Let me do my famous quotes. Office hours. If you watch my videos, you know I do that every time. Likewise, it would be good for the teacher to know when your school hours are. And when you are teaching and working with younger children, you don't necessarily need the whole 9 to 3 time frame. As someone who has even done a little bit of homeschooling with my nieces and nephews, the younger they were, the less time I needed. Some subjects I could do and whip them off, and I could be done a whole day's work in about 2.5 hours if we were focused, right? For some families, they get up late. So school might not start till 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. Who knows? The older the student, the more time you will need. And again, depending on the amount of teachers that are corresponding with you and whether you have multiple subjects being thrown at you, you need to tell them, these are our hours, so that if you happen to have a teacher that phones, then they phone during those hours. They don't phone, at dinner time or lunchtime or times when you're having family time. So you need to set up boundaries. Likewise, that teacher needs to set up boundaries, because I'll be honest, and I've shared this before, I've had parents phone me at 10 o'clock at night. And me, having no boundaries back then, would take the calls. Area number 3 is technologies. Now this is always an interesting one, because the older the child, the more technologies might be involved. And they might be technologies that you know nothing about. And I can speak from experience on this one, because I was teaching a grade 8-9 class, and they wanted to learn some technologies that I knew nothing about. And I knew that what would take me hours to learn, they could probably figure it out in 5-10 minutes. Ridiculous, right? But I think it's really important that you understand a little bit about the different platforms, whether it be Google Classroom, Zoom, Moodle, FreshGrade, Seesaw, Google Meet, any of these things that your children are working on, because there are privacy issues with them. There's different things that could go wrong with them. And so even just knowing how to get into them, what to be able to see, what your child will be able to see once they're in there, and what they should not be seeing when they're in there. One of the things I used to do is, when I taught the middle grades, I actually gave extra credit to the students that would show me how to do them. And again, still not expert on some technologies, because right now I'm teaching in primary grades. I don't need to use them, but it's still important to know them and be familiar with them. And sometimes all it takes is a couple hours. And I know our time is precious, but if your child is having problem, if you know that technology, then you might be able to figure some of those things out for them before you need to contact a teacher. Area number 4, physical activity. This is a huge one, because with remote learning, the danger is always sitting and always being in one spot. And that's terrible for our bodies. Terrible. Our bodies need brain breaks. And one of the things that I love about home learning is that you can do so many activities as a family on a daily basis. Because the thing is, it's good for you too to have those brain breaks. So plan them. If you have younger children, every 20-30 minutes, have a 10-minute break. If you have older children, maybe every hour. Have, again, 10 to 15-minute break. And then have a good amount of lunchtime, upwards, between a half an hour and an hour, right? And have those breaks. Your brain needs them. You will be more productive if you allow those brain breaks into your lives. And if you have younger children and it's raining and you need something that makes them move, then there is an app called Go Noodle, and there is a great channel called The Body Couch on YouTube, and I can't remember the guy's name, but you could take any one of these, whether it be Go Noodle or YouTube. There's tons and tons of videos available. Sometimes it's just nice to get ahead. If you have 20 minutes to keep it short time, go online and pick a couple and then play them the next day, if your teacher doesn't already provide them for you. But do it as a family. This is a great opportunity for some bonding time. And the kids need to see good modeling done. So exercise with your kids. Can I be so bold as to make a suggestion? One of the things that I've heard from homeschool families that was one of their favorite activities that they did was family read aloud. What many families do is they read a book together. They sit down, whether it be after lunch or something like that, or after a lot of work, and they do this together. They stop everything that's happening in the house and they come together and they read. And I don't know whether they were reading for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, I don't know. But this is the one activity that families have always said to me was their favorite. This is just something to think about. If things are a little bit crazy and chaotic in your home and you need something to just, bring down the level, then try family reading. Okay, and the last one is expectations. The idea of what's realistic to do. And there are going to be days when very little work's going to get done, and that might be just your reality at that moment. And if you get one thing done, celebrate the win. It's a win. This is such a new journey for so many of us. There's no one way for remote learning to look like. There just isn't. Because the factor that we don't have anymore, where in class it was a little bit more of a controlled environment, it's not a controlled environment in the home. Well, sometimes it is, but you've also got kids who are going to press each other's buttons when you're at home, right? You have all these different factors and dynamics happening at home. So it is really, really important to be honest with yourself and to acknowledge that no is not a good day. This is not a good day. And just call it for what it's worth and email the teacher, because again, communication. Email the teacher and say, we're not doing work today. We are having an off day. And then turn off all the electronics and either go out within reason and have some activity that has nothing to do with schooling, or have a pajama day and build forts with the bed sheets and read, or even have a read aloud, or play some board games or something, but just keep it simple that day. So, question for you parents: what has been the biggest obstacle for you when it comes to remote learning? I would really love to hear your answers. And as always, if you've received any value from this video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. For those of you who are on spring break, have a great time. Stay home. New world we are in right now, but I hope you are, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, that you are staying safe, and we will catch you in the next video. Take care.